goes for us three. We also have to do the head folder store. That, I think I was slated for right after lunch, right?
Whenever we get a break, it's up to us.
Okay. So we'll schedule it right after our pizza. I don't think it'll take long to.
Just, you know, sort of ask that.
Pass that?
For the, no, for the record, it's just.
All right. So that's our agenda for the day. So. Okay, just to remind you again, we have internet, audience, we're open for the streamlining our meeting today. But for this portion of the contract with the pause the Okay, our next, agenda item is the board liaison report that got yesterday, so. Hang on the schedule here.
I'll do this bottom of each unit here. I was trying to get it, but it said do it best. Let's begin, and thanks, Chair, with just going through my report. I have a list of meetings that I've always put on the front. Shows where I've been, what I've been up to for the last several months. And leave at October 10th off sick, day surgery October 23rd, vacation October 28th, 29. There was some activity that needed to be taken care of, so I canceled the other 3 days of vacations. It was no biggie. And November 8th, I was off in lieu of working September 30th, National Reconciliation Day. And if you'll recall, that was just leading up to our AGM, so I could not, I had to work on it. Christmas break, December 23rd, staff on return to office on January 6th. We thank our employers very much for this Christmas break that is in tune with most of our political neighbors. Also have that in terms of Christmas break. Issues. Let's talk about the legislative opt-in process. And this one I put the final push. It was a mountain to climb and got to the top, and it was very good feeling to at least see our efforts come to fruition. In an ideal world, we would have liked to have signing a CSPA occur at the AGM this fall, but there was outstanding details that had to be taken care of, and our lawyers said, "Hold on, we need to make sure that all the points are covered so that we don't get shied down the road." So we finalized those with Ontario. The dissolution of the union to convert to association was one of the issues. Newly required training was another one, and an acquired venue, Queen's Park. The logistics of putting that together and ensuring that we would have everyone in attendance were just a few of the examples of what we had to be completed so that we could get to the Queen's Park signing. Thanks to the non-executive, particularly Anna Betty, for their assistance in coordinating some of the travel and putting that together on their side so that we're a small office. Yes, we do know how to mobilize people around, but when we start getting other people in the loop, it can become a little bit dicey. The signing ceremony went very well. Mission accomplished. We're now on operating under the CSPA. No immediate challenges, just a realignment. So I've been very nervous about it. I've been, pulling my hair out, but that's just so that the rest of the board can relax and envision where we are. The union representing the employees is now the association. There was some last minute back and forth on that. I guess our association wasn't too happy, and they thought that they perhaps could stay in the union last this effort, but they were immediately told from within at PSAC that no, we're the civilians are also going to be in the association. The board is already functioning on a budget line that is in line with what we're going to get from the CSPA. That was all negotiated and put forward in budget line items for this year, next year, and the following year, so that we would know what we're gonna look like coming in. And we have adequate budget, at least for the sort of foreseeable future on the governance side. Civilian management we're looking to build towards the future. We'll see the frontline capacity double within the next 5 to 10 years. Civilian management positions going to be populated so that they can handle the increased logistics and workload. In the end, we're going to have more officers in the field answering calls and providing for safer communities. The front line is our most important. And the more that we can build that, the quicker we can build that piece, then those questions to the communities about what's happening in the community are the police officers not being available will start to dissipate. As we grow into that, don't become concerned when the noise comes back and they start to talk about the other things, the bylaws, the drugs. Those aren't going to stop all of a sudden just because we have more people. But expect that the pressures will come back on us because we see the benefits of CSPA. It will take time for our communities to benefit from that, including filling the front line. Our biggest thing is to be managing the expectations of the communities and getting out there. And what I'm actually getting at is that the liaison's office and the board has the community consultation route that we have to engage in. Now, because of recent activities, that has been unmaintained. There's going to be a push after February, March, April, May, and June to get on the community consultation road. I don't know who the next chair will be. If the chair is available, he has the ex officio and the chair available to come on all of these trips. I hope that I can rely on board members to attend with. If you're not, if I can't, I usually have Anna Betty or the representative from NAN knows that also come with us. And we still do the maintaining thing where when we go into the communities on the consultation, we're in listening mode. We let the chief of police and the community talk about their concerns and their needs, rather than dispel all of the good things we're going to do. After that's done, we will have some answering them and hopefully what their asks are, telling them about where we are now, what our improvements in positions and designs will be going down the road. And that seems to be a good thing. And it does fit in with the CSPA and the requirement to consult with the communities. We'll probably have to change, or how do you say that, tweak it so that we don't keep doing the same thing year after year, and find out what new tracks that we're on. Either it is through strategic plan management and other things that the board comes up with, and any new drug fighting or whatever drug fighting capabilities that we have. Push these out towards the communities, and so that they can say, okay, at least NAPS and the board are doing their jobs as best they can, and they're coming out with solutions that, if implemented, will be good for us. And one of the underlying things, and we'll see it soon, will be the bylaws and how we can manage them and how we can try to lobby with governments, particularly MAG, to reinstitute courts and the back end, the justice system that needs to be there for our ticketing systems to have some bite. We have some opportunities that are coming up. The board's been asked to submit the nomination of a board member from NAPS to sit in the Ontario Police Arbitration and Adjudication Commission. This is just early morning, right as soon as the day I got back. Of course, I was getting calls from different organizations, both congratulatory and also letting us know that there are positions open. And because we are the first through the gate, right? These open positions for First Nations to occupy spaces within the oversight structure of Ontario were both asked back at the negotiation table, and they're now coming to fruition. So the board, in its wisdom, can or may refuse to occupy some of these seats. When we're talking about arbitration and adjudication committee, Ontario is going to vet the nominee from the board. They will have to pass through that process, which means another CPIC check. That's just the way they do it. I asked them about the checks we're doing now and said, you can do them in the morning, and in the afternoon, the minister will have to do his. It's just the way it is. So that is who will have to process. The person that we put forward must be able to be vetted through that process. The job entails, there is an adjudication or arbitration happening of a case before the committee. Those cases are assigned adjudicators and people who will work on the assignment. Those professional people will be selected by that panel. Board member would be a member of that panel and would therefore seek, say, maybe questions like, is this firm, this person, aware of what it is, be part of the northern communities? Are they aware of cultural competencies? Do we know, would that board member have advice to give the other board members that this firm has indeed worked in the far north before? Are they trustworthy, and are they a good fit for those particular jobs? We haven't had a whole lot of action in this area in the past, but all I kind of worked in my mind was thinking through things like, you know, when we have a case from the coroners come through and there's a huge hearing in the community, and how the First Nations got involved with those. That was a pretty good indicator that, yes, we can be effective at being involved in some of the processes that occur within the Ontario oversight.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Chair, I have a question. I'm not familiar with this Ontario Police arbitration. Like, do you have like an information package that you could share with the board members so that you know, when they do their appointments, then they would have a collection of some information and some facts?
Yes, a good question. Sig Walter has had a presentation before the board, but it's been several years.
Oh.
So timely, Sig would be able to join in either via call or join us at a board meeting to realign the board with what processes and responsibilities are, and we intend to do that. I'm just reporting because this is all brand new. We need to know what's coming.
This is actually brand new too for under the CSPA, for to have a board like this to pick the adjudicators. It used to be there was a number of adjudicators out there. Police service just contacted an adjudicator. Now the province is so that's why they need a board to select them. This is a new process under this new CSPA.
I think if they're trying to achieve a better degree of transparency, so that it's not the old boys club appointing who's looking into their cases and the blue wall is expanding or not. I think that's what they're trying to get to.
Yeah, they're looking after the judges, so to speak, in arbitration, and this board's gonna help to pick those judges.
That's exactly what it was for. Like Fabian mentioned as well, is that you had some tendencies where you picked an adjudicator that would almost be a pro-police, so it had some concerns with that. So like the chief mentioned, so that's why they created this list of adjudicators.
So the province picks them.
Yeah.
With a panel of people, and then the province will assign the adjudicator, so there's no foul play there. Because you may even select it, well, I know this guy,
Yeah.
he likes to lean this way, or this lady likes to lean this way when she's adjudicating. So you could select, you can handpick your adjudicators. Now they're picking. So it's more fair.
How many times do we move to this?
I think, this arbitration committee is, I think they meet 3 times a year. Not sure. Did they tell you?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly.
Their meetings are not long.
No, they're not long, and they pay honorariums.
And I'm not talking about, do we get involved with these things? Because you screwed up someone?
Oh, we could be adjudicated. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this gives us an opportunity, a board member, to be a part of selecting those adjudicators. Making sure that these adjudicators that are selecting are good people and people that know are culture competent and stuff like Fabian's. So it's a good thing that you get an opportunity to be part of this process.
So these and other items will continue to be reported and they'll come on mainstream. I see that the board may be at a point where we're going to have, several short meetings to update as we get into the fit, if you will. So can expect maybe if some details come up with perhaps from, as I mentioned, the name SIG, and I'll talk about later about the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. These people will be able to come online and say to us, outline what things are, give us an overview, and then the board can put its name forward. And I'm not thinking that the board needs to appoint anybody today. Although
They'll probably be reaching out soon.
oh
'Cause
yes,
they've already
like
reached
next
out.
week.
Yeah, they've already reached out to me. I'll be sitting on this as the
Yeah.
only First Nations police chief.
We have 2 members, right?
And our association president.
So in just concluding that piece, it's been a long journey getting the legislative piece in. And it's spanned 4 decades if you really think about it, because if you look at the original agreement in the bottom where it says our goal is to have a police service that is legislative and is equivalent to the other services being provided on Ontario. So the future of NAPS is on a better path, to community safety. And miigwech to everybody who helped us get there. Whether it's teams from down south, particularly the board here, the leadership, communities who waited, and NAN executive. Board deserves an accolade for making this happen. We can give ourselves a pat on the back, but I believe what we will do is we'll be working with NAN at one of the next major assemblies here at Thunder Bay, and we'll invite the counterparts from Ontario to attend a meeting, and we'll have perhaps an honor song put up and pass out a few gifts for people who helped us to achieve this goal. Now, on a lower note, let's go to the AGM. The AGM went pretty much as expected, with the exception of the presentation on the policy. The policies are internal to the board and the operations, and they were put forward by myself for adoption by the members. Due to the restrictive size of the document, we told them at the time we're exceeding 500 pages for one document and 70 for the other. I did not have paper copies for each of the attendees to go through. I should have taken the time to do that, even if the cost is there. Other thing was, I know we had problems with electronic transfer onto the wristbands that we were gonna have. We should have, I should have noted that back then and made that correct. So I own that. Because of what I did, our legal team sort of ended up sort of falling into a little bit of a trap there. And that's their issue, but I do admit mine. What I did not anticipate again was that USB drive was going to be available. And I didn't think that the leadership was going to say, just a second, pause while we review these 560 pages of document. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the leadership needs that. We work for leadership, so that's how we do it. At the next meeting, we will have that information transferred ahead of time to all of the leadership, asking for their comments and input, and that we will be approving these at the next AGM. As our legal team said, they are operational policies for service, and the board has put them in play. It doesn't mean we cannot use them, so they are in good standing. The audit was presented by representatives from MNP, having a former auditor in our employee, Jason. Is it Polzak? I can't pronounce it. I say just say Polzak.
Yeah, I mean, Jason P.
Yes. Anyways, good guy, and everybody knows he was a former auditor, and so he's able, like Susan was, to move well within the audit formats and provide them with all the information so things go smoothly when the audit exercise occurs. And it was well accepted by me. Plans are made to have an AGM report ready for January 2025. We do have the draft, but we have not inserted any of the pictures or alignment. I didn't think that this would be a good time just to look at a bunch of documents. So what we'll do is, like we are planning on doing with the chiefs, once I have the first draft of the AGM, which should be shortly, I'll send it out to all of the board members so that they can review it and, you know, then nitpick a little bit about that photo doesn't belong there. Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we make some adjustments? And we'll have time. And I think that having that out by late February, March is not a problem. Board training. We were going to visit the inspector of policing when we went to Toronto for the joining of the CSPA. It came down to the event being last minute adjustments and stuff, and actually the inspector said, you know what, it may be just too busy of a day. Let's not try to overload it by having a visit to the office of the inspectorate. We can do that another time. So we will be looking at having a visit to Toronto. One of our board meetings upcoming will be in Toronto. We will visit with the inspectorate. But honestly, before then, we'll be into the training modules. The training modules, there's one that has to be completed by March and another one in June. These training modules are done online. They're individual exercises. I've been working with them to try to see if they are a fit for us doing it together as a presentation. And if that does work and it lends itself to it, I think that we will try to do it that way. Because even if it is an online exercise where we're all there, we get through it. It gets done rather than not having everybody do it on their own time and we don't do it in a timely manner. So these things are requirements. I think that one of the exercises particularly is on cultural competency. You're probably going to be saying, why am I doing this? But at least what it is what you're doing is what all of the other boards, police boards, are going to be doing in Ontario. So they're going to be maybe even asking the same questions, which is not a good thing. But why am I looking into cultural competency? Why do I have to? All those people have to deal with this at some point. They should know about the First Nations, what we are all about. So that will be happening. You will be seeing something in the near future on the two training modules. We had the tour planned, we canceled that. We will review the training modules briefly in my report. The second training module is going to cover NAPS training. That is the one that I'm talking about, where it's cultural sensitivity, human rights, and systematic racism in First Nations. We may find that a little bit hard for us to say, well, why are you asking First Nations people to talk about First Nations? We know. But I think that our best things that we can do in that, when we're doing that training, is provide the government maybe with some constructive feedback. If we find something that is missing, repetitive, or to be fixed in a better manner. So I think that we look at these training modules, at least the one, as an introductory to seeing what everybody else is seeing out there and seeing if the modules are resonating with what we would like the government to be putting out there. I think we have a chance here to actually be contributors. So we're looking at completing the module, the first module by Friday, March 7th. Keep that in your calendar. I had mentioned before the OPAC and OAPSB appointments, so I'll just go over them briefly. Ontario Police Arbitration and Adjudication Commission contacted our office. Let the board know that there would be an opportunity for nominate a board member who would become a candidate to be appointed by the Minister of Arbitration Selection Committee. We'll just leave that. The Ontario Association of Police Service Boards also reached out to us. They let us know that they'd have us, like to have us join the association. I don't know who was in the meeting in Sault Ste. Marie several years back. It was a health and welfare meeting centered around First
Mental
Nations.
health work?
Yes, and at that time we talked also about when the CSPA became a reality and First Nations started joining, would there be an opportunity perhaps create an umbrella association within the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards that would be the Ontario Association of First Nations Police Service Boards, something like that, that would allow us to pay them a nominal fee for membership in that forum, which means that we access all the information that they do, and we get the back and forth from that. And then we have a subgroup like we do with the federal line that allows us to examine from within that realm what are the First Nations needs. The reason why I say that is because I've been at the Police Service Board meetings, association meetings in the past, and what comes up with them time and time again is topics about tax. So that's always a concern with their boards. The association also knows that we're beyond that. We have a budget that is healthy, that is designed finally to do that. So a lot of our conversations aren't, oh, we have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and we got to go get all of the tax from the other guys. We have to have a rating increase. They have to argue. And so that creates a lot of friction in their function, but a lot of the presenters, a lot of the topics that they're putting out there are relevant to policing in general. And I found that the levels of speakers and just being there is informative and interactive both ways. So that's for the board to consider. But there is going to be a meeting coming up at their AGM, June 3rd to 5th in London, Ontario. So if we're putting our planning caps on, maybe that is a lineup meeting we do one time, that we go, we'll have a one-day meeting ahead of that. Maybe when they're doing their AGM, then we'll have an introduction. Of course, they would want us on the floor. They also said, Lisa, who's leading them, said that they would be willing to give us some time on the agenda, perhaps 40-45 minutes to an hour, to introduce our board, what we do, and our journey through the legislation and into the realm that they are standing in. So I'll wait for feedback on the board for that. June will come up just like everything else quickly. If I can turn over to the finance. As indicated to the board, we've got a lot of line item and be using the surplus to cover the expenses, but there will be some residual accounts, additional costs for consultations. It was 104,000 plus last year to cover off the matter with Roland. And at this point, Chair, I'm wondering if I can mute my discussion because I'm talking about particulars in terms of. So we will leave the screen on, but we'll just. business, right? We received the board budget from finance, finally for the second and third quarter, so if you will, turn to the, fiscal page that's, attached to the report. We've had, we did not have our second and third quarter, delivered to the board, as usual. And again, the reason goes back to, the fact that our service was not yet, receiving any, additional funding from Ontario. And, we needed to make sure that, we were all able to survive. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a healthy, surplus, and we were able to carry it. Matter of fact, I think we only got down to around 66,000 left in the budget, which of course, Kathleen there, remember she all had some nice silver hair, it's getting grayer. Because of, anyway, so she weathered that, and she always reminds me every time I say, oh, I'm gonna spend some money over here. I get the look, so she takes care of us. Travel costs for, travel costs for the charters used in community consultations have increased significantly. Now, we haven't been doing the community consultations, but we did a couple charters, and that really got us going, because where we were expecting to expend something like $12,000 to $15,000, we'll turn the neighborhood of 18,000 to 22,000, not once, twice, but 3 times. So that experience is when I asked Jason the other day, when we were talking about the charter expenses, that yeah, they're getting a little, we need deeper pockets. We will be good enough to carry through this year and the following year, because we expect that our fourth quarter will come back to us and replenish a lot of the board surplus at this time, and we can plan for that. What will change with the finance committee that will be appointed after this meeting is that we will have to examine and do some more research on what the travel costs would be in terms of these consultations. Remember that we have the chief of police, the NAN representative, myself, probably the chair, and at least one board member. I believe that having the right people on the plane, since the plane is going up, and there's no reason to have empty seats or exclusive travel. It should be utilized as best we can. And that's kind of been our motto when we've done this. Because one thing we've noted is that when we do get into the communities and we do have a chance to discuss things with the chief and the council, it really cools the air. It brings things in line. The chiefs are no longer worried that we're not doing our job. Visibility, yes, for our officers, but visibility of management, of board, of governance, and getting feedback from the community is a real key in keeping that forward. So at least the chief and council go down to his membership and say, we understand where we're at. You've seen the plan that the board have. We have faith that they will change or they will be able to improve because of ABC. And this consultation does that. It also provides us with feedback that we use, and I collect all of the data, the bullet points, and then we throw that into our strategic planning for future sessions and AGM reports, and I keep the board informed on the outcomes of those meetings. And I believe that I've covered pretty much what I've got. The board has, if you look at the finance page, we haven't received our fourth quarter yet. Just prior to the meeting is when the money was transferred from Ontario to finance. And I know that Jason was busy doing all of those calculations to bring all the pay back pays calculations into play for the entire administrative services and front line. So that was busy. We are okay. We will be receiving another quarterly payment, and that will replenish our resources. Once we have appointed the finance committee, I would like the finance committee to be able to commit to a meeting probably within the next month to roll over and do a new, go over the budget and present a new one for you before the end of the fiscal. Jason is also going to be providing a budget for 25, 26 at that meeting, and that we will coordinate that with the board as well. We're in good shape. That's my report, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any questions?
I got a few comments here. In regards to the Ontario Free Services Board, I think it would be ideal for us to join that. We're under new governance ourselves. So it would be good to have support and resources available as we move forward as a board under this new legislation. So I would suggest that we join up and draw from them what we can as a board. And also looking at the legal expenses in regards to the financial portion of your report. It's quite steep, which is understandable. And at the same time, maybe now is the time to look into that, are we staying with this, I don't know, the time, and I'll mention it. Are we staying with this legal representation? From that one, or?
Yeah, for now, we're in where we're at. Later on, during the presentation this afternoon, our council will be suggesting how we will move forward, and it may not necessarily be what you see. And we'll leave that for now, because that's going to be in camera. I just wanted to assure you that the one-time legal expenses that we experienced, we would normally have had the administration handle it.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, with limited resources available, we had decided just to take it on to utilize that surplus, because if we didn't, we would be rolling over a giant surplus. And I still have to work with Jason about how that happens. And if we were the ones who had no money, in the past, Chair McKay, when we were doing similar work, it went directly to administration. And we had reached a point where we said, well, what if the board needs X amount? And they said, if the board is in charge and we say we need money from the global budget, not from the front line, but from administration to accomplish what we need to do, we can do that. We avoid that loss, but sometimes it's necessary.
Thank you. Right,
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your report. It's very informative. Well put together. I was just wondering, in terms of the AGM, the request by leadership for them to review the document, was there a resolution that came with that request? Did they pass the resolution? Given that direction that you want to review the 520 page policy document?
I believe it was by action. Yeah, so the chiefs, we tabled it and they said that we would present it at the next AGM. So I will sort it out along with the board, or Frank will sort me out, so to speak. We will do it the other way, that we have the electronic things well in advance, and we will provide the written copies available if that's needed.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is that the chiefs are pretty vocal about it. There are quite a few chiefs that are very vocal. I don't know if it was so much the question, the policy itself. I think what's not very clear in their minds is that now that NAPS is legislated, it has to be arm's length from the political decision-making process. I think that's what they're struggling with. So I think, we were to spend more time with them to explain them how this works, it might help. I'm not too sure if it's the policy themselves, the question, I think it's more like, because they keep saying it's our police service. We should have a say how it functions at the community level. So that the discussion they're having. So if we cannot satisfy them, make them understand that it's legislated now, it has to be arm's length from the political decision makers. We may have to do more work to make sure they understand how this is set up. The policies are okay, I think they're probably okay with it. It's just that for a lot of those chiefs, they haven't fully grasped or accept the fact that it's, has to be arm's length from the chiefs now.
Perhaps a narrative that is early on in the AGM that reaffirms that arm's length picture, and then remind them that yes, in the AGM assembly, you are to provide new direction to the board, and the board will then execute your directions under what legally they can or cannot do. They'll provide feedback and let the chiefs know if we can accommodate their requests. Maybe remind the chiefs that, you know, the board is there to protect you, so that when you have your political hat on, you can wear that at all times, and ask the board hard questions that need to be asked.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on some of what, I think Stan is, sharing. You know, the AGM to me was more of a success than a failure. There's so much information that comes along with this, new legislative service, and I did take a little bit of umbrage on some of the chiefs' representation that they didn't know. Well, given election cycles and all that stuff, there's a natural progression to not knowing what's going on, right? The chief comes in a year later. We've been working on this for how long? Years and years and years. And, you know, we were absolutely in the community. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in entering the communities, engaging with tribal councils, and I mean one-on-one stuff, where the board took the diligence and the time to make sure that communities were fully integrated into the idea of the legislative police service, making sure that we had the support of our communities to proceed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have. And not only that, we got political resolutions through chiefs in assembly and the membership to do what we did. And it's okay for chiefs that are new to the game or new to the exercise to come and criticize, but I don't think it's fair to say I haven't seen a 520-page policy document and don't know what's in it. If you want it, I think the answer from us is, if you want to read it, here you go. Knock yourself out. But the other thing so in that regard, Fabian, I think, you know, the expectation from us to provide information to the chiefs is, because I know what happens when I give a 520-page report to my chiefs, they ask for a summary. And I think that's what we normally try to do, is in brief, give them the highlights of where we're at, and if they want the details, well, the details are available to you if you want them. So I also agree with Stan that, you know, the expectation that the board has to act independently has to be something that's, in certain instances, it has to be something that the chiefs accept. And they have to accept that by designating board members, that's their authority. And that the information is gonna flow back to them through their membership. But like with many other things, there's this dichotomy where it's hands off politicians, let the board do its work, and we have to be accountable. Because the other suggestion that, you know, by like one chief in particular, that, you know, who are the board members and how do I know? Well,
you go ahead and question your board member and the person you select and make sure that you're diligent about appointing that person. My chiefs will do the same, as will, all of the appointing agencies. So I didn't, I appreciate that there may be an information gap, like I say, with new chiefs coming on board, but there's also a congratulatory aspect to this thing where don't rain on the parade. Things have gone really well, and I think we're the envy of the country with respect to First Nations police services. So I don't think we need to take it on the chin too harshly. It's just political criticism, and that's not unexpected. That's gonna happen whether you're doing good or you're doing bad. You're always gonna stick your hand into that flame. So I'd like to just end by thanking Fabian and those that worked so hard to get us where we are. So be with you.
Chair, if I may, there's a couple of minor things that I didn't get to my report because they weren't added, but just at the end. The Paul Triple Scholarship for report was extended up until January. We had one applicant. That applicant is qualified, and is one of the stepdaughters of one of our sergeants, and that person, her name is Makara Magmuna, and he lives in Thunder Bay but attends school in USA. I just wanted to let you know that we will be forwarding a scholarship to her for $2,500. And that was the only application that we have received. And I just wanted that piece of information for you. And the second piece of information that I think I should have included, although we may come up with it later, is that NALSC and NAPS is going to be conducting an enforcement and prosecution of First Nation laws and bylaws working group on February 11th and 12th in Chelsea, Toronto. That's still being developed. We're still trying to work on it. That is going to be, of course, pointed at the hard question of where is prosecution of bylaws? How do we get unstuck out of the mire so that we can start to look at First Nations creating bylaws that the police can enforce and that the courts can adjudicate. That's going to be happening on 11/12/2025. I suggest that the new executive pull together after and talk about whether or not they need to board members there. I would recommend at least a committee. I know that I will be in attendance. Sorry for those that miscue. We will also be meeting on Friday in regards to deliberating the pluses and minuses of the AGM, how it went for the three organizations, what we can do better next year. And that's actually going to happen here. We've got such a nice office here and everybody wants to come visit. So our steering committee will be here Friday. And I've offered to Natalie from NAN to expand the agenda a little bit, because I don't think we'll be talking too long about the AGM. If we want to dive into what's going to happen, because it's kind of a little gray. We don't have a specific agenda for that. And I think it's time to start making that gel. So we're going to work together to do that this Friday. And then Betty, if you're available. That's it, Chair. Okay. Any more comments?
Frank, I have a few comments.
Okay.
They're Bravo. Bravo, is there a certain time, hours they have to fly? A certain week or a day or? Like, why I ask that is, where we're from, it's like, $900 just to get here to Thunder Bay sometimes. Well, and there's, skids are always full. Sometimes you have to wait for days just to get out to Thunder Bay. And, knowing sometimes we have just trying to get people out, people, even the hospital.
the people on their deathbeds and stuff like that. Sometimes it's really hard for us just to get people out, right? And this plane that comes in and out, that drops off, police people, sometimes it goes out empty. I'm just wondering, sometimes we ask even Ontario Hydro to take our people out. Just wondering if that would be a case. We ask, that you're serving, our communities. Put people there if there's room. Another question I wanted to ask is at AGM. Out of that 34, like how many communities attended? Everyone attended, again, or?
Kathleen, you have that. I had 24 in my head, but I wasn't sure.
That's
I have a comment, Chair. I think in terms of the AGM, I think it was a great event. It was welcome by the leadership and other individuals, other delegates, and we need to continue investing in the AGM because we have continued to see an increase of participation, and there's a lot of valuable discussion. And I agree with Jason that, there are times where we face criticism, and some of it is warranted, others it's not, but we just have to accept it as a lesson learned. And then maybe one of the suggestions that I have is that we maintain and keep track of any new leadership that's been elected. And perhaps just email them some type of welcoming letter and a little orientation package of some sort, just some information, just to maintain that connection with the leadership. I'm just trying to think about bettering those relationships. It was something that was noted, and anytime we receive criticism, right, there's always something that we can learn from it. And that's just one of my suggestions, and thank you, Fabian and Kathleen, for your continued service to the board and the police service and that communities.
Thank you. So that goes the David's report for now. But I just wanted to also comment on the discussions that we have here. In relation to we're in the new era of service that we have under the legislation. Also acknowledge all the people that have worked in this field. So it took a long, in 1990, Dan executive was directed to begin working on establishing or working on the mandate that was given to them to establish the scenarios for police services. The Dan wanted to have the Dan First Nations wanted to have their own police services to serve them in more and remote communities. And they felt that at the time that we could do better in relation to providing those services by taking control of the operations of a police force. And that took us a long time at that time. And when it was established in 1994, 30 years ago, 31 years ago now, there was a lot of years of challenges that we had to overcome as a police organization. And so I want to take, also want to acknowledge that the leadership that was provided that got you, all the chief of police, leadership that we had during that time, that's just on the wall in the office, there, wall, police, chief of police that got to work, to be working with this. But in order to secure 34 signatures to a resolution, it's another monumental task that our staff have to undertake. There's two Fabians that got into office, they're gonna have the task of going around and explaining to them what the process of being legislated was. So each one that has signed for that each chief knew what they were doing, chief and council, that were told who had signed to be legislated. That was I think a key in relation to us getting approved by the provincial government to be able to move forward on getting constituted and legislative new legislation. So, it took a lot of hard work. There's a time, but now that we're here and the work that's going forward, it's even more, it's going to be even more challenging, because the First Nations leadership have to understand, what that means. What that means to the services that are beginning, at the beginning. Even though now that we have resources, it's not going to come right away. It's going to be transitioned as possible. And we have to get our First Nations personnel involved and informed and get the capacity at the community level to be able to provide those services taken on by our own people. They have to understand that this is your organization. They have to be involved in, be supportive of it, and to provide what resources we require at local level to make this work. We need to recruit with our own people. So, so it's a matter of task that we're going to be faced with just every year. So we need to do that. We need to look what are the chances. So the next items that we're going to be briefly discuss or presentation with me is the new requirements for operating on the CSP and also the role and responsible training for the CSP is required by BFE. One of the things I asked our legal counsel during this discussion was, can we say in the legislation, what's the appropriate focus on the First Nation people? And what does that mean? We know what it means. We have our own definition what it means. But it's the government that has to understand what we talk about offering appropriate services, police services for our people. We need to be able to find that and move forward on getting that understood by the chiefs and also by the governments. So I want to leave it to we'll go into this new requirements for operating as a CSPA.
So I don't know how many picked up on the nuances, but my report basically dispelled a lot of these two items here. So I'm not saying that it's done, but it is pretty much, I'm not going to repeat part about the training. The new requirements for operating under the CSPA. What's going to happen as we get into and delve further into this realm, we will find that we may get lost in the process. And the advice coming from within and from around is to maintain the board as we are, who we are as a board, what we've been doing as a board was correct. All we're doing now is finding out what external processes are being used from the provincial side to judge and to maintain public safety peace for them and bring those within. For the last decade, we've been dealing with various committees and, some very adept people at Solgen in telling us and devolving, us information that says, okay, these are the additional requirements for that, such as, the oversight and governance pieces. The SIU is familiar, other pieces are familiar, but we never had that integral opportunity to join them at the table, become part of that operation. One of the things that I mentioned in my report that's going to be, that is kind of a light, and I think that it's not written out there, and I think that it's going to be incumbent on the board to put that in, is keeping our piece and maintaining it and not being overshadowed by those processes and not being afraid to interject into those processes. So if we see something happening at one of the tables, including the OPAC or whatever committee it's on, we shouldn't be shy of telling them that we don't think that they've hit the mark. And people like Sig Walter, who run those organizations and others, they're familiar with who we are. And like I mentioned before, we'll have them back and we'll be able to bring them in. So what there's a couple of things pending. There's just three. There's Sig Walter who's going to come in and give the board an overview. The inspector of policing is available. We said we would go and visit that office. We don't have to, but I think that it's a good idea. Or they can reciprocate by coming in. The third one is there is an open invitation to join the provincial organization, Ontario Police Service Boards. I don't think that it's a mistake to join them or to get involved with that. I already let the board know that the main difference and nuance, they're providing the same thing. They're doing it based on a tax base. That's why we talk about not having leadership. They still do have quite often a mayor or lead councillor in there all you'll hear from him at those meetings is about his concern for the tax base. And so then you have to throw back in there saying, it's about the community and it's about the community safety alone. Right? And if you don't have the resources, then maybe you can't function as a community police service, your own community police service. Maybe you have to look for other ways to meet. We have to maintain ours in our side. So I don't have a direct dispel on where it's going to go. Just some of those things and how those several main institutions that are out there. I think we have to be fluid, use them, do the back and forth, and we're by no means trapped. Although they do have policies. I think that we use our customary care of what we find, our cultural competencies that we see, and we push them to their limits and say, yes, we're serving our communities our way. And we're doing it within our budget and within the means that the government's, and we're doing it within CSPA. We're not just writing a new rule book on how we police. We've been policing with the provincial police rules for a long time now. So we're not in new territory. We're trying to gather more of what those OPP policies that are doing and how they apply to us. If you recall, over the last many meetings, Stan will keep coming back to us and saying, what about the off-reserve side? What about the winter roads? We're the only ones that are there. And so we have to keep announcing how to do that. And maybe better, stronger policies by using the OPP commissioner or whoever that would say, we need to be able to not just talk to the local commander, but we need a policy that says the local commander of the OPP will get in touch with NAPS, and it will happen, and then we can put that out there as a policy that derives that, so that the community members will know, and Stan and others will know, what the response should be in terms of us applying, community safety in the traditional lands in our territories. I'm kind of, stuck in a track here now. Here, I think I've said. Here.
Is that your covered the bulletin training too?
Yeah, the training I did in my report.
We are. Is there any comments, questions? Good morning.
I just, I'm sorry, Chair, just a comment, a question, maybe in terms of budgeting for training, I don't see it in your, is it part of the overall budget? Or the for training, is it, I didn't see it specifically outlined as a cost.
Those two training pieces are online, so all we're talking about is, 1 day per diem for the board, so
We budget.
yes.
For the training. The other thing I'd like to propose at some point is, some sort of a, whether it's an ICD designation or some other opportunity for board members to, not for a qualifying feature of serving, but at least, an option for NAPS to pay for things like ICD or other designations for board members to learn. And it's not necessarily about police service, but it's just, learning more about board service in general and being prepared to, like, rules of order, procedure, things to expect. ICD is the independent board training and certification. It's more of a formal education on how to generally service public organizations like NAPS. And again, I'm not saying that you need it to serve, you serve at the pleasure of your communities, but it would be helpful even for me to, not even for me, but I would be interested in something like, NAPS helping me be a better board member through through a designation that's nationally, internationally recognized. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as an add-on to that, Chair, I do see that, we have, two new members, and one is a returning member, but, and Betty, Betty Bluecoat, as well as, Keith, who will need to, get some grounding in the board, so we could, work on some board training, and how that might come about. And this thing that you're talking about, Jason, I'm intrigued. Perhaps that's where we need to go. The roles and responsibilities of the board and the basic, navigation of the equipment we have and, the processes the board uses. I'd like to be able to go over with, the new members. Of course, Harold could hit the ground running, but, Keith is, fairly new to the process. I think we have to bring him up to speed as soon as we can.
So, in relation to the CSPA. Well, as board members, we started fresh, right?
Yes, that's a fact. We, constituted the new board at a recent meeting. And, everybody's terms, started, I believe it was, Kathleen has the date, but the date that we had that meeting, that was the date the terms started.
3 years.
Yeah.
That was communicated to the leadership, right, the tribal councils. So they had the discretion to, I guess, leave their, director on the board. Did we have to, have documents of any sort for that?
No, but I do think that we should follow up, as you just said. That hasn't happened. I haven't, let the leadership know that, the board has been, because of the constituted, the board terms have started. We tried to do all the maintenance ahead of time before we got to that point, and now it's.
Do we need to get an appointment? There are resolutions.
I think what I'll do, Frank, if it's okay with you, is, do a letter to the tribal councils and let them know that their board member, who their board member is, what their terms are served, and their terms are under renewal now as a start of a new board. And if they wish to, challenge or whatever that, they can do it at any time, but until I hear different, your board members are in for, 3 years. Would that be good? It's an action item. Okay.
Sure, we're checking off all the right boxes.
Thank you.
So we can go on a 10-minute break, is it, that what Nan's woman's initiative now?
Yeah, they're outside.
There's a-
So, yeah,
Motion to approve the
Oh, yeah, I need to get a motion to approve, Vivian's report.
Harold is the thing.
Harold, you moving? Are you moving it?
Yeah.
Hope by Harold to accept the Vivian's report.
Seconded?
Stat, second. All in favor?
Take a short break and then.
Yeah. Short break, and then we'll get to one. 1 hour, right? Move it.
Yeah, that'll take us up till noon.
We need a break.
Yep, that's clear.
Have a short break.
They have it set up. Do they have to put their PowerPoint? And they said, so. Oh, okay. You're back. He's back here before,
Want to, maybe introduce yourself over there, starting out?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe Harold, you can start, introduce yourself to our guests, and they'll introduce themselves after, and I bet you will do that. Okay, so, the line. He's starting. Hey.
Oh, Brad can serve. Yeah. Deputy Chief. Introduction. Introduction.
Oh, for me, oh, sorry, hi, Brad Deuce, Deputy Chief of Police for the NAPS.
I'm Harold Gunner. I'm from the Neshoba Tribal Council up in Moosonee. And I'm glad to be a part of this. We're gonna be presenting here. Reason being that I grew up in a environment where I don't have to go through this. Probably like a lot of First Nations people in a place where there was a lot of domestic violence. And exposed to that for years and years. And I believe it's only by the grace of God that I didn't go down that path. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Russell, Sound like First Nations? Let's stand here today, representing the Independent First Nations Alliance. I'm from Muscat. I used to work at NAN one time. I was a young, tall guy. I remember I got it as a graduate in year 2000. I remember Madam Oxford and I got elected. A couple ladies from NAN came and talked to me and said, can you help with the Women's Council? So that was one of my priorities, to make sure that with the Shnagashki, there was a proper Women's Council in place.
My name is Betty Zucker. I'm from Port Sugar, and I'm under the PAO and from the council, and I've been on this board for about 4 years, 4 years. And I'm the only woman, as you can see, I'm the only woman here. Against all these, males. Yeah, but I've learned a lot being here and listening to my colleagues, and so I'm very interested in this the presentation as I know how like in our communities like how our women go through a lot of things, domestic violence and like so many things that things are going on in our communities, especially with women, especially with women. And I think, you know, that I think in the past that it seems like women have not been really voicing of their concerns, and I think we're heading this way now, where we're going to be voicing a whole lot of things like to do with our issues or there's different issues, right? And the reason why I say that with our voices to be heard is because I went to residential school for 7 years. And I felt during those times, even as a child, that But, they were trying to shut my voice, not to talk, not to say anything, not to complain or anything, not even say any of my concerns. But now it's different. I can voice I can do that now. I can speak, I can talk. So that's where I get my strength, and I get my strength from the higher powers. That's where I get my strength. Speak and to talk now. I can talk now. So, yeah, that's me.
Hi, Gary Armstrong. I'm the chief of police in Shawnee Police Service. Welcome. Thank you for coming today to present to us. For you.
I'm Frank McKay, I'm from Winnebago First Nation Council Chair, DU. I'm also from South Dakota First Nation, and I'm the acting chair for the North this year. Want to look at the board chair presentation. Any way we can help. Thank you.
Fabian Batiste, board liaison. Our office is located just down near the NAN offices. So anytime you want to confer with the board, getting together, feel free to communicate with us and through the Deputy Grand Chief's office, of course, can too. But we're always interested in having our competitor come speak to us. Thank you.
Hi, Jason Matisse, a representative from the Waban Tribal Council. I'm from the Natchitoches First Nation. Nice to meet y'all. I look forward to your presentation.
I'm a good, my name is Bob Baxter, and before I begin, be good for the tobacco. And I want to just to let you know, I followed the traditional path of marriage gets Anishinaabe, you know, the Anishinaabe way from way back, and I choose to do that because of what Betty there was saying is the residential school. Things happen to be the residential school, and I don't want to be part of that. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, whatever, you know, but we each have that opportunity to choose what we want to do in life. You know, to better ourselves and stuff like that, and the environment of the people we work with. But having said that, you know, every morning, every day, I take out my feather and I go on this lake here. It's a real powerful spiritual place. This place that we created guide come at this area. And a lot of things happen in this area. And every morning, I pray for the leadership. I pray for the Anishinaabe that are up north in the reserves, west, south, east of us. However, wherever they're situated. And because I know that as a Anishinaabe, we struggle every day, you know. I'm not saying we're poor, I'm happy, like we're very humorous people, you know, we get over things. But I try to put my I try to help, I guess, in that silent way that you know, sort of help with the creator, that I ask for his blessings and his direction and his guidance and the help for the leaders of this our nation, you know, whoever leads, if it's an organization or if it's just one individual, that they're helped by the creator to move on their journey. But it's just us, others think all of us are going here and what you're doing here kind of here for that. And I'm from Martin Falls First Nation. So I'm 76 years old. I'm gonna be turning 77 this year, and I'm looking forward to that. That 77 looks like a magic number. Yeah. And so I've been with I was a police officer for about 34 years. I retired from the and you know, and I'm honored that I was acting in the NAPS board and the NAPS, police service to be their elder and to be their staff carrier. Even.
So Chair, first of all, I, thank you to, the NAPS board and, administration for providing, the Man Woman's, Initiative, team members and the council members. There are some council members that are viewing through the link that's, provided. And, but I wanted to, thank you all for providing us with this, time. It's, and the reason why, we felt that it was important because as NAPS, has now transitioned into, a fully, legislated service, it's so important that, the resources and services that might be, specific to the needs of our female population be, also adequate, or exceed. Because we know that, we've hear in the media how the RCMP, the OPP, and other policing services has not, met the needs of the First Nation woman in these, homelands. The First Nation women represent the highest number of homicides. And I've been asked a few times, like, why is it that we represent that number? And so there's various reasons. But I also think one of the biggest reasons is that we are targeted. Because when there's a homicide of a First Nation woman, when there's a sexual assault of a First Nation woman, when there's a First Nation woman that is a victim of domestic violence, they are most often re-traumatized again within the Euro-Canadian court system. And they are treated less than, say, a 40-year-old Caucasian male. That's a sad reality. And it's, so we hear of cases where a Caucasian male has taken the life of a First Nation woman and they get 4 years sentence. So what does that tell us? That tells us that that woman is of less value. So that is our main message, and we want to, build that awareness. I know many of you support the efforts, and within your home communities, you too are advocates for equity. And but we have a role as a women's council, as the NAN Women's Council has a role, and the NAN Women's Initiative team members have a role and responsibility as well. And so this is the messaging that they're bringing here. So we thank you very much for providing us, providing them with the time and the space here. So I would like to introduce Loretta Shishigwin, who is our Director of Women's Initiatives, and Jamie Lee Wanakamek, who is the Policy Analyst for the Women's Initiative. So, so Loretta and Jamie Lee, I'll now turn it over to you, and welcome, English.
Thank you. Everyone has said that they're looking forward to our presentation. I feel like I should have brought puppets or something with me to make it really flashy. Sorry, I didn't do that. So, thank you for allowing us to join in here today. We're very excited and first of all, very excited and happy that the service is now, officially been legislated, that's fantastic, so something I know everybody's been working towards for quite a long time. As Deputy, said, I am the director, my name is Loretta, I'm the director of the Women's Initiatives Department, and this is Jamie Lee, she's our policy analyst. And our department consists of only one more team member, and her name is Carissa Machano. Where do you point it? Oh. I mean, you do have the slide deck too in your folder there, so,
Oh, there you go.
oh, okay. So, there's a picture of me, Jamie Lee, and our third team member, Carissa Machano, who is the coordinator for our department. So the three of us are the Women's Initiatives Department at Anishinaabe Nation. We work very, very closely together just because of our size. And, we try to do our best with very, very limited resources. We're constantly, it seems, trying to bring in more financial resources so we can do the work that we've been mandated to do. We have in place the Native Council, which Stan Yuri mentioned. He was had a hand in ensuring the establishment of. And we have we've just recently changed. Yeah, we've just recently changed the way the council was is filled with the recruitment process. In the past, the council the members were nominated by their peers during the annual NAN Women's Gathering, and their term coincided with the NAN Executive Council as a 3-year term. But that, that only gave a very limited pool of applicants. So what we did for this last, during this current fiscal years, we changed the selection process. We had the NAN Executive Council as well as our governance committee review all of the process and the different administrative pieces to be able to change the process, where we now have appointments via the tribal councils and independent First Nations. So right now, we have 3 vacant seats, but we do have in place Terry Fiddler as our elder from the west side of NAN, Chelsea Tremblay, who is our independent First Nations rep from the east side, Rachel Anishinaabe, who is our independent rep from the west side of the NAN territory. We have Chief Carla Duncan, who is our Ipua rep, Emily King, who sits in the Chibougamau seat, Alexandra Bridges, who is our Waban rep, and Myrna Quident, who represents Windigo. Currently, we have KO, Matawa, and Mushkegowuk seats that are vacant, but we're working on filling those, and we've been working to try to do that since the fall. So, we realized coming into this new process that it would take a little more time to get all of those seats filled. But we're happy to say with the complement or the makeup that we have in place now, they all seem to be very strong, vocal, educated women with, their ear to the community side of things, grassroots side of things, and I think it'll be, once we get all of the seats filled, I think it'll be a very strong council, and it'll be in place until the next election, which we're in, or so 2027, I believe. So these are the faces and names that represent the women and for this period of time. As Stan mentioned, the council was established. There's an assortment of resolutions that speak to, historically, that speak to the importance of having NAN women at the table at the peace assemblies, having NAN's or women's voices in the decision-making process and just, being able to bring voice to the priorities and issues at the community level. So they've been established since, about 2003. And, we'll continue to keep them, it's very, very important, advisory piece for NAN and the executive council, as well as our department. All the work that we do, we consult and vet through the women's council, and we ensure that we are getting that community level perspective in the work that we do. They were established to carry out, and provide guidance and advice to the NAN executive council and the NAN chiefs in the assembly, and to ensure that there is a voice of women in the governance of the Anishinaabe Nation. As I said, they do sit at the NAN chiefs assemblies. They usually have a table there, and they're provided an opportunity to address the assembly. Each and every assembly is usually the way it works, and just to again bring that community level perspective and issues forward. They assist in when we advocate for government. Their input is very, very important in advocating for resources, initiatives, programming, and they really enjoy and really value their advisory and leadership role. And they really do have, they know how important their role is, and that they are that collective voice for our women throughout the NAN territory. We have a number of resolutions that are specific to the department and to the Women's Council, and priority areas include violence prevention and the empowerment of NAN women. And then we have a special focus more recently on the national inquiry into MMIWG and the calls for justice, and missing and murdered Indigenous people, and gender-based violence prevention. Those are sort of three, I guess, areas that right now require some immediate action and focus. And the reason that we're here today presenting to you is we really want to, ensure that those areas are amplified, and that as a police service, that NAPS is, in tune with those and cognizant of those priorities and issues that are out there, and that have been highlighted by the NAN and executive leadership. So looking at some of the stats, I'm sure, some of you may already be aware or know, one is that Indigenous women have experienced at least one form of intimate partner violence. That was from a StatsCan census that was taken in 2018. We know that Indigenous women and girls are 6 times more likely to be murdered than other groups in Canada. And that between 2009 and 2021, Indigenous women and girls made up 5 to 7% of homicide victims, even though we only make up 2 to 3% of the national Canadian population. And the stat for missing women, for missing Indigenous women is even higher. We represent 11% of total missing women in Canada. And we're just, women are at risk, Indigenous women particularly at risk, more so than the general population, twice as likely to experience violence from a current or former partner than non-Indigenous women, and more likely to experience physical and sexual assault than non-Indigenous women. In 2022, 27% of police reported homicide victims in Canada were Indigenous. And of those, 7% were considered missing persons at the time of their death. So the statistics are pretty grim, and something that, we collectively, I think, need to address. It's a huge undertaking, it's a huge issue. But we have to be vocal about it, and we have to be very, methodical, very mindful as we, undertake the work that hopefully will see a decrease in those statistics. And the data that we have, I mean, there are some more current data, but by and large, a lot of the data is outdated. There are definitely gaps in data collection and reporting. And a lot of the data that we have applies to mainstream Canada with only a small sampling that is Indigenous specific. And when it comes to data specific to NAN, it's pretty much non-existent, like formal data. So that's something that as the Women's Initiatives Department and working with the NAN Women's Council, we would really like to undertake some work to try and start that data collection. So we have stats that we can present to government when we're advocating for more resources, when we're advocating for, programs and initiatives. We really need that hard data, and it simply isn't there right now. So we're hoping that, that's something that we might be able to work with NAPS on to try and build that database. We're really very interested in that. Sorry. I'm sure you've all heard of the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and that inquiry concluded in 2019. So we're going on actually 6 years now that since it was concluded and since the 231 calls for justice were released from that inquiry. And those calls sort of encompassed 18 areas that needed addressing and reformation, which includes education, justice, and health. To date, only 2 of the 231 calls have been completed, and more than half of them haven't even been started, and that was according to an analysis that CBC undertook. So when it comes to the inquiry and really the whole issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women, and at NAN, we've actually extended that to, we now use the term of missing and murdered Indigenous people, and we've done that by resolution because we recognize that the crisis is not just only specific to women and girls and gender diverse. We know that, our men and our boys are going missing and being murdered at alarming rates as well. So when we're doing our work now, we frame it as missing and murdered Indigenous people. And it's really important that we educate the public and our communities on the crisis, and that we have to challenge our community members that, to not accept violence as being normal, because that's not part of who I think any society wants to be, but specifically, Indigenous people were not violent and historically, prior to colonization, that was just not how we lived. So especially, perpetuating violence against women and girls, we came from a matriarchal society, so where women were valued and held up to high regard. So we need to return to that in the work that we do. We need to be able to improve our ability to track and identify cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people. And something that came from the calls and when they were doing, when they were gathering the evidence and the input into during the inquiry, is that something that became apparent, or a recommendation, I guess, is that there's a need for more accountability and transparency when the police are investigating missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, specifically then cases. And that our police officers should, or not just our as Indigenous, but all police officers should receive cultural and sensitivity training And, make it a priority to form those relationships with the communities that they serve and the Indigenous populations that they serve. We do have, there are challenges that were identified through the inquiry. And, policing in remote communities was one of them. And that there is, sometimes a delayed response time, a lack of officers, in local detachments, and that, they may be seen as not part of the community, or, intimidation there, so that some, people may not want to, seek help because they perceive that, the police maybe are not their friends for whatever reason. I mean, there's so many different reasons why that may be. A lot of it goes back to, colonialism and all the issues negative issues that came from that. There's a high turnover of officers, and particularly in northern communities. And again, this is all information coming from, I'm not saying this is specific to NAPS, this is all information that came out from the national inquiry. And that, with that high turnover rate, that right there is a barrier or a challenge to forming, establishing trusting relationships with community members. And then because, we see so many officers coming in and out, when victims do disclose and are, working with the police on, to resolve a case, they may be re-traumatized, having to, if the officers are changing, having to tell their stories over and over again. So that's where, programs like SAS is very, very important, that they have that continuity of care and of support. They're going through the criminal justice system. So some of the specific recommendations include, rather than doing and again, this might be more pertinent to non-Indigenous police forces, but keeping in mind, to get away from discourage racial stereotyping, looking at physical descriptors instead of just race or Indigenous. I find that a lot when we watch, local news, that not necessarily, I mean, it's important, I think, with a missing case, if somebody can be clearly and visibly recognized as, a minority, Indigenous or African, or, whatever it might be, Black. That of course is very important when you're trying to locate that person, but I think more when it comes to victims of homicides, and, they often, almost it's like a sensationalized, that they were Indigenous and what the circumstances were, where you don't hear that information so much. I think with a lot of, non-Indigenous or Caucasian victims, they don't go into, they were last seen doing this and frequenting this place and running, risky behaviors or whatever. You don't hear that so much. So getting away with those kind of things. Do we need protocol for early intervention in crisis situations or cases of family violence? And, having your officers placed in communities for an extended time would really, really, I think, help build that trusting relationship between community members and police force. And to have training for officers who are being placed in specifically remote communities, so that they can acclimatize to the environment and to community, because I'm sure it's a culture shock for a lot, especially the non-Indigenous officers, who are, so just to be cognizant of that fact that they require community orientations and training so that they are better equipped to build those relationships at the community level. So those are some of the sort of broader recommendations. As far as specific to NAN and murdered and missing individuals, and our department, we consistently, regularly get requests. And I must say that I've only been in this position and working in this department for a little over 3 years now, as well as Jane Lee. I think she started a week after I did, so, since we've started, we've been seeing an increase, in requests for assistance, to assist families and communities with these cases. So when it comes to, whether it's an active missing persons case or somebody who has been a victim of homicide, we do what we can. Again, I said at the beginning, we have very limited resources, so we get calls, we organize vigils for victims of homicide, for instance, to just commemorate and honor their life and their memory. Because a lot of times the families feel like they've just been forgotten. And we want to ensure that they are supported and that they don't have, they don't feel re-traumatized, and we set them up or ensure that they connect with FILU, which is the Family Information Liaison Unit. Those were established as a direct result of the MMIWG group, and they're mandated to assist survivors and victims of violence against women, girls, and the Two-Spirit LGBTQ community. We provide supplies, recently with the Deborah and Shinabi case, we provided like just simple things from ensuring that they have, beverages for their meetings and making sure the family is taken care of when they're here in Thunder Bay and hotel rooms, that sort of thing. So just those little things, and those are things that often the larger organizations or larger, when the government says, okay, funding for this, funding for that, well, they don't look at necessarily those smaller but costly items. Like those items add up. We do what we can, but we don't have the resourcing to be able to say, okay, here's our pot of money to assist a community with search. We have Dean on the current ongoing Dean NAPS missing person case, and even I heard the father say like just gas for his ATV, but just costs like that. Those are all part and parcel of supporting families and communities when they're dealing with these situations. And of course, capacity for our Women's Council and our department is an important issue, and something that, hopefully, I don't think there's anything directly right now from the board that we require, but just, that you're aware of that we exist, and that we, I think, play an important role in working alongside the service when we can and provide that assistance. We do have connections to the communities and to some of the government stakeholders as well. So I think it can be a two-way road where we can be able to assist each other. And we would really like to, like I said, develop a NAN-specific database on MMIP. I think that's a really something where we could really join forces together and be able to assist. We have already established quite a good working relationship with the Survivor Assistance Support Program. Excuse me. And we've been doing some, we do some community events together, different, who involve each other. And right now we're actually collaborating on developing a human trafficking presentation specific to the territory. And, right now we're looking at that as something that we as a department and as a Women's Council would deliver. So that's not an added load onto your officers by any means, but we know that they have the expertise in some of the data and just, that we're searching for. Like they know the stories that are out there, right? More so than we would. So, that's something we're working on. We're hoping to have that, that module developed and finished by the end of fiscal year, by the end of March, so then we can start delivering that to our communities, to our schools, and just making, because it's very, once you get into that whole human trafficking issue, it's very, very scary. And, you know, our young people are really, really at risk, especially with all that, the online stuff that's out there right now. So we, you know, all this to say, we're just really interested and really want to work with NAPS where we can. And, you know, looking at, we've been informed that there is work now beginning to, or that you were establishing missing persons unit within the force. That's great. So that's, you know, if we can be of assistance in any way, or, you know, we're more than happy to provide any input or advice.
We added more
Just
positions
call on
to, SASP as well.
Yeah.
For the With partner violence, position, we just started, and we'll be putting a position in SASP as well. So we will encourage them to work
Yeah,
with you and
for sure, for sure.
collaborate.
We'll probably be meeting with Carly very soon, just to go back to our trafficking module that we developed, so we'll make sure that we mention that too. So, you know, another area that we feel is very, very important for the police service to consider in moving forward, especially as you become newly legislated, is that whole awareness and yes, being proactive when it comes to gender diversity in your force. And it's, you know, gender diversity it's about acknowledging and respecting that there are many ways to identify outside of the binary, what we know as male and female, right? It's not about attention seeking or receiving special treatment. And there's not a need, you know, I think gender diversity, when people hear that, they kind of get maybe nervous, scared, I don't want to say or do the wrong thing, or, you know, it's not about having to know every gender identity out there, because, you know, there are more and more popping up all the time. You hear about the, you know, metrosexual and the, you know, the lesbian, the gay, the non-binary, like there's a list, you know, as long as my arm, of different ways that people are identifying. And it's not that people need to know all of those specifics or have them memorized, or, you know, it's just being aware that those exist and that not everybody identifies simply as male or female, and being open to that and not being judgmental. You know, at the core of it, they're human, but they, you know, there are some ways in which they may, you know, your interaction with them may differ. They may have preferred pronouns. Like I know people who they want to be addressed as they or them, you know, rather than he or she. So simple things like that. And, you know, it's really, it's not something to be feared. It's something, you know, if you are talking to somebody who, you know, you can simply say, how would you like to be addressed? It's not considered rude, you know. I'm sure they would welcome that than assuming or addressing them in a way that they don't want to be addressed. So it's things like that. And when we're looking at or thinking about NAPS as a police service, you know, it's important to have that kind of awareness when you're dealing with our community members, especially in today's world, because our young people are, I think they're coming up with more freedoms than they were allowed in the past to express themselves. So that when your officers are interacting with the public, you know, community members, whether it's during meetings or at events or even responding to calls, to have some sort of baseline training on gender diversity is very, very important, so that, you know, you avoid disagreements, confrontations, misunderstandings. And then, you know, beyond that, when we're looking at the police service, and as your staff and your officers, you know, as an organization, that, you know, gender diversity means that, you know, all of your staff and officers are treated fairly, that you are mindful. I think it would be really beneficial for NAN to have, if they don't already, a recruitment plan that targets female, whether it's in civilian staff positions or, you know, especially in recruiting females to be police officers. I think that's something, you know, that goes along with empowering our women and just needing, and even, you know, in this room, Betty said it, you know, she's the only woman on the NAPS board. So that goes, I mean, it extends to your board as well, and any advisory committees that you may put together, you know, work that you do to ensure that there is a balance and that the women's voice is represented there in everything that you do. And that when you do recruit officers, female officers, that they are promoted to higher ranks, that they're given those opportunities and allowed to, you know, build their skills and experience to be able to be promoted into higher ranks. All of that will be, you know, working towards a better working environment. You know, visually, demonstrate your commitment towards gender equality. And so, you know, today we wanted to come here just to sort of plant these seeds. I know we have so much we could go over with you, but, you know, we wanted to just say, you know, this is who we are. This is, you know, some of the areas of focus and some of the areas where we think perhaps we could work with on. You know, our Women's Council really feels that, you know, we could form an allyship so that we could lobby together, stronger in lobbying for better services in the north from both the federal and provincial governments. And that, you know, as you know, so many of our communities and our women specifically are underserviced. And, you know, unfortunately, sometimes being a first responder is the only way that they receive any assistance. They have to be in, you know, crisis to be able to receive some further assistance. And, you know, as you're moving forward now that you've been legislated, and your work plan, I'm assuming you've got probably a grand, huge work plan, just to keep us in mind. Like, again, that we said, we're more than happy to work with your, you know, alongside your officers and powers that be to, you know, just ensure that all the work you undertake is cognizant and, you know, reflects that the importance of women in our communities. And then, you know, to educate yourself. If you haven't already read those 231 calls for justice, they're an interesting read, actually. And it's very interesting that they go down into sectors like health and justice. And, you know, it talks about even hotels, like having hotel staff trained to recognize signs of human trafficking, right? Because we know that happens a lot in hotels. So it is a very interesting read if you can take time to review that. You know, we really do think that implementing a recruitment plan for targeting women to get more female officers is something. I'm not sure if you already have us. I know you have an ongoing recruitment plan, but whether there's something that, you know, speaks to specifically recruiting more female officers, that's something we really feel is very important. And more victim services, and it's great that SAPS is going to be increasing or expanding, I guess, their scope of it, so it's great.
I wonder if there's a way that you could help us because of your connection with the council and helping us recruit women.
For sure, I'm sure, you know, we would be,
you know, we're open to suggestions that
Yeah.
we're able to some help in that regard.
definitely,
Because,
that's something we can definitely take back to them, and, you know, we can have you, we have regular meetings of the Women's Council as well, so if you want to invite members to present us, and just not necessarily present, but to have a working meeting and dialogue and come do some brainstorming, that would be, we'd be more than happy to do that.
we certainly want to hire more indigenous
Mhm.
women in service.
Yeah, we have a women's leadership campaign that we rolled out over the last year and a half or so. And we featured Shannon Jacob as one of our leaders. So that was great to see. We had quite a few names actually that came when we were looking for nominations from, that were officers within NAPS, so it's great. But there's always room for more, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But that, you know, that's in a nutshell, that's what we've come here today. I don't know if, you wanted to add anything. These are our names, and I did include, I mean, we've got our pamphlet in your folders there, has all of our contact information, and my card is in there as well.
I just wanted to add a few comments. Thank you, Greta, and Jamie Lee, and, other, women council members that might be joining online. Thank you for taking the time. I just wanted to let the board know that, when it came to, the inquiry that was held 6 years ago, Anishinaabe Eskimo Nation was party to that inquiry, and also, Mike Matata-Bobbin, who was the chair at that time, and I don't know if it was you, Terry, our Roland that was, came in as expert, panel members. But I know Anishinaabe Eskimo Police Service was, part of, the panel, the expert panel members, they call it in terms of service delivery. And, so I believe that some of the information that is part of those recommendations are part of the input of NAN and Anishinaabe Eskimo Police Service. And also, I think you're probably asking yourselves why we're underfunded. It's, you know, we continue to face that challenge because we're competing with service delivery organizations, where most of the pots of money that are available to you know, work on some of the issues that we spoke of are all, like, the funding goes to, like, Onwa, for example, because they're service delivery. And so we spend a lot of time going to our government partners, and it's something that we continue to do, and despite all that, you know, the Women's Council, the Women's Initiative do a great job, and they also have you know, carry a heavy burden at times. Like, one of my initiatives was to raise awareness about the number of homicides that have happened here in Thunder Bay. And we also have gun statements as well, where we have cold cases of our NAN citizens. And we felt it was really important that we have these visuals to raise that awareness and also to ensure that, you know, that these deaths, these people are not forgotten. And that we need to continue having those hard conversations. And so they carry a heavy burden, but they also are very proactive. So I'm very thankful that I have the honor of working with them, and so thank you for coming to present today.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. It shows some of it for us is very new. I mean, we haven't been able to educate ourselves in relation to all the issues that we have to deal with our people. But we're involved in the aspect of troubling behaviors that our people have in relation to relationships and so forth, domestic violence and so on, that are experiencing in the field. And we try to help out in the various programs that we have, and that's what's within our organization in terms of how we can address those areas when it comes to in contrast with the law and the justice system. And so, you know, we'll be willing. Now we are willing to work with you to collaborate on on the areas that we have, in relation to the resources we have, that are common to our common goals. We're willing to, collaborate with your organization to do that. But we serve all our people. We serve the women and children also, and you serve the women and children, so it's a common goal for us to work together. This makes sense, so we can thank you for the presentation, and I'm sure the police will follow up on those areas that we can work together on. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I leave you to.
Maybe, seems like it's happening more and more. Don't know where to start, but, even, like you said, hotels, human trafficking. You can identify what's happening, even with the boats coming in and out. There's even, underway police do random checks. I don't know, those kind of things, it's so easy, it seems like it's happening more and more here. It's so easy, because of, easily just put somebody in a sea can and they go to the US, Toronto, I don't know. So. It's happening more and more around this area.
Yeah, I think just building that awareness
Yeah.
goes a long way, because I think, when people. And before anyways, in the past, we think of human trafficking, we think of, like somebody being. Yeah. Standing on a street corner in like a big city or something, but it's not, it's happening more and more in smaller communities, and, it's really, like I said, once you start to learn about it, and we'd be happy to, once we have that, module developed to present that to the board, could maybe be our first guinea pig audience, even if you're willing to do that at some point. We're hoping to have that developed in March.
But, then. We lose, even our girls, like, days at a time in travel, is, I'm not sure that's what's happening for other communities, stuff like that, yeah.
And I just wanted to add, human trafficking also includes, and this is happening in our communities as well, where there's exploitation of women, girls, and in some cases, boys, where they're trading sex or other things for drugs or payback. That is happening, and it's just recently that the police services throughout Canada has started with their human trafficking units. That I know we have to, that might be something in our plan as well. And but I think we need to start with some education and awareness. I think maybe that's a good start there. Not only with our police services, the board as well. And then, we'll reach out to our general population as well. We have done some education and awareness before, like Mushkegowuk has their person there that does workshops, presentations in the community. Maybe it's something that other tribal councils might want to consider as well. So, thank you. I think Director Feary.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. The NAPS board that the police that we're working with is very structured and is processed. It's a police service. it's just like any other public service, there's no guarantee that always something is set up that there'll be specific attention given to the frustrations, the problems that our needed women have. I think what needs to happen is that, we may have to look at additional, woman's unit or something like that, or at least an officer that can focus on the issue of what's happening to Native women in general. What's gonna happen as well is that in the very near future, because the north is opening up, there will be a lot of resource development activity, there'll be a lot of money, a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs and other people from down south coming into our territory. I think what needs to be looked at is if we can set up some kind of a unit of some sort with the Shabasky police to make sure that there's focus on what the presentation, what the ladies are presenting here to do. Because if nothing is set in place, they'll keep coming back, the same story and over again. I think it's our responsibility as a board to set up some process how we can address the situation with the missing and murdered Native woman. So I suggest that we begin to look at how that can happen going into the future. Because
Thank you, Stan. There you go. Comments? Oh, I want to thank you, for your presentation.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
We're about to break for lunch and join us for
Yeah.
pizza.
Oh.
Chair, if I may, I'm just going to make an announcement online and because we will be going in camera after lunch. So this is the conclusion for the broadcast part. Thanks participants for showing up online. We will be going for lunch and in camera. The only thing that will be missing from the public piece would be the date and time of the next meeting. That will be done during that point and it will be posted online after this vote. You will be able to obtain that information. Thank you very much.